Beastmaster has been a long time coming, huh? Originally announced before dawntrail even released years ago, it is now finally coming in just a couple of weeks on September 8th. I don't mind the wait personally, though I know it's been a point of contention for many. The limited job is seemingly receiving a lot as well, blowing Blue Mage out of the water in both development time and quantity of bespoke content made for the class, and I have genuine hopes that it'll offer a new and meaningful experience to FF14 that'll make it a fan favourite that should receive a lot of future updates further down the line. If that doesn't happen, limited jobs may well be shelved for good. At the recent European Fan Festival, following all of the Evercold-centric festivities and announcements, there was also a live letter number 93, focused fully on Beastmaster and providing what I assume to be one last in-depth look at it before it releases next month. The live letter had a special guest, Masaki Nakagawa, Mr. Ozma, the man who, alongside creating some of the hardest and most memorable combat encounters the game has ever seen, was also the lead developer on Beastmaster. This was his project. In today's video, I'll be running through everything they talked about and recapping everything relevant that we know about Beastmaster to date, as well as a little bit of the yapping that I assume you'd come to expect at this point. As a quick aside, if you want to support deep dives and discussions into FF14, please do consider subscribing. They covered the unlock requirements, which have been mentioned before and are fairly simple. To unlock the job, you need to have a combat class, either Disciple of War or Magic, at level 50 or above. You'll also need to complete the patch 2.0 MSQ, which is base game A Realm Reborn, and have purchased the dawntrail expansion, despite it being a lower level piece of content. Beastmaster's primary weapon is a one-handed axe with a shield that goes on their offhand. The job is categorized as a melee DPS, and goes up to a current level cap of 50. The expectation is likely that it'll get 10 level boosts in future updates, sometime in the Evercold patch cycle alongside that mythical Blue Mage update that we surely see for real one day. As you'd expect, the job revolves around capturing monsters throughout the world and using them in battle like a legally distinct Pokemon trainer. There are 50 to capture, and you choose up to 3 beasts to map onto 3 different horns, which go on your hotbar for usage in battle. You start with 1 horn, but you will get 2 more by the time you hit max level. There's a heavy emphasis on customizing your playstyle with your favourite beasts, and swapping between them based on the constraints of the encounter or enemy you're dealing with at the time. All beasts have a core set of abilities that follow the same format. They have a parting blow, which is a really powerful attack done by the beast, followed by them retreating and leaving the battlefield, a trick, which allows them to perform their Instinctual skill, which feeds into the Instinctual combo system, which I'll get more into later because it's a whole bag of worms. They have a tempered release, which is a unique action to that particular beast, and you'll want to plan which tempered releases you want to bring along, which will influence your monsters. And they have a borrow, which allows the Beastmaster to borrow some of the beast's strength to use an action themselves. Beastmasters need to choose between using tempered release or borrow for each of their creatures, as using one also sets the other one on cooldown until a new beast is summoned. They share a cooldown, so you can't just use both mindlessly, you need to make a decision there. Borrow provides one of 8 actions to the player based on which type of monster they had at their side at the time. Mr. Ozma did a full-on playtest to showcase this, which is the B-roll in the background at the moment and will be for the rest of the video. During the demonstration, he was playing with the setup of a Pugil, a Slime, and a Coblin. Whilst fighting a bomb, the Beastmaster used Borrow on the Pugil to access an attack called Quelling Wave, giving the player a GCD ranged attack to use. They were able to stop enemy movement completely with an insanely long 30-second bind, using the Slime's tempered release. For the finisher, as the bomb was about to detonate, they borrowed Soul Crush from the Coblin to interrupt the attack. If Parting Blow is used, It'll always deal high damage and maybe other effects to the enemies, and by the looks of it, it acts as a Beastmaster's highest potency hit, but it also sets the summoning horn for that beast on cooldown. At a base level, Beastmaster incentivizes having a carefully planned setup of monsters and knowing how to juggle Borrow, Tempered Release, and Parting Blow. The job also uses the Instinctual combo system to add some more complexity and choice. As you fight, both the Beastmaster and their beasts earn gauge. You can see the UI element here. The top gauge is for the Beastmaster, and the bottom gauge is the blue-coloured one, which is for the beasts. You can spend this gauge on Instinctual skills, which feed into a combo mechanic that uses that big flashy job UI. The Beastmaster has 4 Instinctual skills, whilst each beast only has 1. The Instinctual combo, job gauge, consists of 4 different affinities, and those 4 names are going to fall out of my mind the moment I've said this sentence, and instead, I'll just remember them by their colours. One affinity leads into the next in a clockwise direction if you're looking at the UI, and activating the correct coloured skills in an intentional order will deal increasing damage. Players have 7 seconds between Instinctual skills to keep their combo rolling, and there's a combo counter below the gauge to show the number of attacks that you've managed to chain. Rally and Rallying Cheer will also fill the gauges of the Beastmaster and the Beast respectively. It honestly looks a bit like to me that Beastmaster is another prototype evolved mode job. Just like we can consider Pictomancer and Viper to be the same thing in that regard. Not many buttons overall, but the actions themselves either have a high level of thought and many options in how you utilize it, or are fast enough to hopefully provide engagement despite not being thoughtful. I would argue that Pictomancer is the former and Viper is the latter. With all the options we have for different beasts and their unique skills, assuming they're well balanced and there are reasons to not just always default to one overpowered setup, there's a lot of decision making before the battle, which will then affect the moment-to-moment choices you make in the encounters themselves. Beastmaster also has a unique piece of side content that acts as its endgame of sorts, and is intended to be tackled by solo players. The Crucible of the Unbroken. The Crucible is unlocked when the job hits level 30, and Beastmaster gameplay shifts to focus on this versus the open world. This is the Slay the Spire-esque roguelike mode that has been extensively teased at this point. In this game mode, players traverse a board with branching paths to fight enemies. Depending on the board, you can choose up to 15 beasts to take with you, with the goal being, quite simply, to survive all of the encounters, make it to the end of the path, and defeat the boss at the end. Unlike the Masked Carnival, which Blue Mage has, where stages are isolated and you'll do one and move on, the Crucible is a full gauntlet, and as a result you're going to need to survive all the way to the end with limited resources, making decisions on how to use the resources you have as well as the resources you gain along the way. Health for the Beastmaster and the beasts does not natively regenerate during or between fights. You're going to need to use potions that you'll obtain from chests, as well as resting at certain rest points to replenish your HP, but you'll only be able to heal a select number of your party each time. When your beast hits 0 health, they're knocked out of the Crucible. With such strict HP management, the Crucible allows, and if anything, requires you to manually control who takes attacks between the Beastmaster and their pet, using skills somewhat reminiscent to Paladin's Cover to divert damage elsewhere as needed. Different enemies have their own elemental strengths and weaknesses, as well as their own unique quirks, so your own pet strengths and stats are very much relevant to success. The Crucible isn't as simple as just straight battles though. There are also shops and the aforementioned rest and chest spots, which can provide valuable gear that will change the run entirely with their passive effects. Feed can be purchased from shops and it'll boost your beast's attributes, and they can have multiple different meals depending on the pet type, and by the looks of it, certain types of meals will work well with certain types of beasts, and it's a whole system that I'm not even going to get into until we get the full content. In addition, you can get gear and artifacts which grant stat boosts as well as special effects. One showcased during the live letter was the Ring of Sacrifice, which revives a downed player at the cost of sacrificing their current beast. Another provided immunity to certain elements of attack entirely. They seem to be capable of completely changing your priorities for the rest of the run, depending on what drops and which beasts you've brought along. Board stages show which enemies you'll be facing up front, as well as their elemental strengths and weaknesses. There's a filtering system that feeds into this, allowing you to choose the best beasts suited for each fight. If you don't want to plan too heavily, there's also a recommended team feature which will automatically put together the best selection of monsters for the fight. After the final boss, whether you win or lose, you're going to both get experience points for the Beastmaster and also for the beasts who participated in the Crucible. Beast XP builds their ranks and levels them up, which in turn gives them better attributes in the game mode. After you complete the Crucible, you're also going to get currency, which you can trade in for other rewards or also upgrades for your Beastmaster's gear. Once a beast hits rank 25, which is the max it seems, they will unlock a special appearance. In the live letter example, one beast had an alternative colour scheme available when they hit rank 25, but the developers specifically said that other beasts may have something other than colours to enhance their appearances. Additional rewards will also be available to players who complete the Crucible in full, though we don't really know the details yet and won't until the full release. After completing the Crucible, players will unlock 3 new difficulty tiers which are called degrees. Each degree enhances enemy health and damage, but the rewards as a result from completing it are better. For players who complete all stages of the 3rd degree, they will be rewarded with a unique mount, which they showed off as this big ol' guy. Square Enix said Beastmaster content will be continually released in quote-unquote seasons, with the first one starting 2 weeks after patch 7.56 and going up until patch 7.58. Afterwards, seasons will be based on normal patch cycles. Each new season will offer new challenges and different rewards, with player rankings for Crucible of the Undying also resetting, affording the community an opportunity to focus on the job again for a little while, trying their best to attain the best score. Leaderboards will be an opportunity to provide the same kind of ranking that niche game modes like Final Fantasy XIV's Deep Dungeons have, in an attempt to keep the mode active over an extended period of time. So, my first thought after the live letter was admittedly absurdly toxic, but I thought it and now I have to share even if I am going to hell. It made me a little less frustrated that they haven't shown more of the evolved mode jobs yet. Okay, let me explain for a second. Now Kiyoshida showed off Beastmaster a while back at an old live letter, right? I found it so difficult to understand and get to grips with back then, and so I decided explicitly not to cover it in detail until we got more information. It felt like he was just pressing random buttons and wasn't too confident either. Turns out, that's probably closer to the truth than I had expected. This time, with Mr. Ozma controlling the Beastmaster, who had a far deeper level of knowledge about how to play it, I suddenly felt like I understood the job mechanics intuitively. It made sense, and it looked fun to play, in comparison to before, where it all seemed to just be a little bit of a headache. This is reasonable. Yoshida can't be an expert at everything, and I hope that when they showcase more of the evolved mode jobs in the future, be it at a live letter or elsewhere, I really hope they are able to bring somebody on who knows them innately so that we can get the best first impression possible. I actually think Beastmaster looks like it shows a lot of promise. With these limited jobs, for me personally what I'm looking for is a combat experience within FF14 that feels very distinct from the usual jobs and encounters that we get in the game. Blue Mage does that decently enough. The massive book of skills that you painstakingly collect, assigning actions based on what you need for the carnival stage or the old raid you're going into, and then putting the correct shape in the hole based on what shows up for you to deal with. To me, Beastmaster is a new twist on this, but if I am completely honest, It isn't the monster taming or the hotbars that excite me in this case. It's actually the Crucible of the Undying. I've lost a dangerous amount of time to Slay the Spire 2 as of recent months, and if this is able to adequately capture even a shred of the magic that that game possesses, then I will likely be hooked for a long time to come. I really hope it's good. It looked good, but it's hard to say beyond a shadow of a doubt until the player base is given the time to invest some real hours. I do have a small concern though, which I doubt will be solved whatsoever until release. So much of Beastmaster seems to be focused around, first of all, that overworld, but then secondly, almost exclusively the Crucible of the Undying. Where else does it fit into FF14's ecosystem? Is it really fully and completely this side mode and won't be seen interacting with the main game otherwise? We see Blue Mage a lot in Fates, for example, and it's pretty great for killing dungeons quickly out of the ones it can access. Is Beastmaster going to have some place where it shines, some reason for it to be brought into certain duties, or even show its face in general outside of the Crucible when a new season releases for it? I really desperately hope so. I think it's nice when these limited jobs have niche uses elsewhere that feel valuable. Either way, we have just a handful of weeks left to wait. The next time you see me talk about Beastmaster, it'll be after the patch is released and I've played it for myself. I hope I'll have a lot to talk about then, honestly, and I suppose I'll see you there.